All right, welcome everybody to the 9th meeting for the second semester of Game Development Club. Woo!
Yay! I got my hands, I got one.
Nice. Glad to have you guys here. All right. All right. So, first things first, thanks. Second things, I guess, announcements. So, I'm going to be kind of running through the usual in terms of announcements. We have this week in Workspace another workshop challenge, I believe.
Yeah.
Yep. Doing another one of those. It was a lot of fun last time. We didn't have too many people, but we had some pretty fun results. Had a lot of fun with it, so.
We had a few people, but a lot of snow.
Yeah, there was a lot of snow. That was an alright day to not show up. There was a lot of snow, so whatever.
Oh, don't want to. This one will be, last time we did movement controls, so you set up your own movement. This one will be enemy design, that you come in and choose how you want to make your own enemy. Probably talk a little bit about raycasting before that, but I'll give you a working top-down shooter that just has player movement controls, and then you can set up how your enemies want to play out.
Yep. Neat. Also, I've been saying this all year, but too bad you get to hear it again. If you want some publicity for your games, regardless of what stage it's in, beginning, idea stage, whether it's almost done, tell one of the exec members, me, I'd say Cole, I'd say Veronica, I'd say Isabel. I don't think any of them are here. You can tell Nate. That's fine. You can tell whoever's on the exec team about it. Give us a warning, and we will give you some slides to work with and give you some time to sort of present it. Get your foot in the door. Enlist some help, or just get people to look at it and get some ideas. We're also possibly, maybe, doing that. I mean, it's getting kind of late. I'm not so sure about this. No, this is the weekly stream. We're definitely doing this. My bad. That's right. I took it out. Never mind. The weekly stream. I don't think Aiden's here, so if you want to message on the Discord that you're interested in doing the weekly stream, go ahead and do that. He'll probably get into contact with you. You can bring your own game, or you can play the one we have for you. And you can basically just show up. There's a streaming room on campus. Hang out on some beanbag chairs, play a game for a couple hours, leave. That sounds fun. We're doing the Partner Game Jam, coming up pretty quick here, April 6th to 8th. That is not this weekend, that is the weekend after that. So it's coming up real quick. So get on that, get hyped for it. It's gonna be a lot of fun. We actually have prizes this time. We're giving away, there's Aiden, he's got the streaming sheet. We're giving away a PS4 Fallout 4 Pip-Boy edition and a copy on Steam of Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, and Fallout 4. And it's 2 of each of those, so one for each partner in the Partner Jam. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
And it's the games, not the PS4 or the PC.
Yeah, we're not giving you a PC or a PS4.
You paused after PS4, so.
You're right. That was my B. Yeah, we're not giving you a PS4. We don't have that much money to throw around. It's true. We don't have Zach's money to throw around. Another thing to bring up, if you want to get a t-shirt, you need to let us know pretty much now, because we are ordering them pretty darn quick. I don't have it up. I can show it after the meeting. I'll show the t-shirt design. We have the t-shirt design done. But if you would like to get the t-shirt, at all, I guess, tell us so we can make sure to order enough. It is $15 for the t-shirt, $20 if you also want to pay dues. You have to pay dues to win the prizes and help us out, I guess. So yeah, do that. So, today I wanted to talk about sound design, a topic we haven't talked about this year, which is kind of a problem because it's really, really, really important in video games, and it can be really impactful for a lot of things. So, first things first, what does sound design actually include? Anybody? Throw out what involves sound design in a game?
Soundtrack.
Music, exactly. Music?
Sound effects.
Sound effects. Voice acting. Those were the big three that I was looking for. I'm not really going to be talking about voice acting this time because that's almost something that's barely even in sound design. That's almost something else. So I'm not really going to go into too much detail for that. But this is what goes into it. It's basically all audio that is actually in your game would be the sound designer's job to handle. So this includes sound effects and music. Sound effects are, give me some examples of sound effects in games.
Shooting sound effects.
Yep, gunshots, yep.
Wilhelm scream.
The Wilhelm scream, yep. Possibly, maybe voice acting, possibly. You could count that as sound effects. Things like swords clashing, but it can also mean stuff like menu navigation. The sound of moving from option to option, the footsteps your character makes. It doesn't have to be all big whooshy fancy stuff. It also includes all of the little stuff, and that stuff can be very important. And then music, ranges from ambient music to where you can hardly tell it's there to boss music where it's in your face and ridiculous. And sound design, basically your job goes into two categories: creating sounds and adding in sounds. Basically creating your own sounds from scratch, usually from nothing, and working to make that, or stealing other people's stuff, which is totally fine. I'm encouraging you to steal other people's stuff, but other people's stuff might not fit your game, so it depends on how you want to do it. And the sound designer can be a dedicated role of like, here's this person, they are your sound designer. Or it can be someone's job, whereas like at the side, they also do the sound design. A big factor for whether you're going to have a dedicated role or not is when you do your sound design. That's actually something that is a lot of game developers will actually argue one way or the other. It's kind of whatever you decide. It's not really set in stone. That you can have a sound designer from the start, that this is their job and they start working right away, or you can even have them start working as late as when you've got it playable and when you've got some of the art assets, and that they can get more of a feel for it before going into it. So if you're doing it early from the start, you might want to have a dedicated sound designer that is their job. Whereas if you're doing it later on, you might not worry as much about it, because if you get the sound designer right from the start and they don't start working on it until 7 months into work, they're probably going to get angry at you for not paying them, or if you're paying them, you shouldn't be, because they're not doing anything. So, quick heads up. I'm not going to get into detail about actually making music. I'm sorry if you came thinking I'd be pulling up Audacity and showing you the ropes with a bunch of software. I'm not doing that. I'm not qualified to do that. Please don't ask questions about that, or do. I mean, I'll try my best to answer, I guess. But I'm more talking about sound design in theory, so like what goes into it, the different parts of it, what you should consider, that kind of stuff. So yeah, just a heads up. Does anybody have any questions about this, by the way, before I move on? You can talk. Okay. So, why are sound effects important? All right. Now, to show an example of why sound effects are important, I want you guys to tell me what this is from. You should be able to. I'm going to be disappointed if you can't. I don't know how loud this is going to be, so I'm sorry if it's really loud. It probably won't be. That didn't even go through.
Yeah.
Whoops. You heard it. Zelda, yeah. And when does that sound play? That's a big part of it. I didn't mean to press it again, I'm sorry. Does anybody know when that exact sound plays?
When you get an item.
Nope, not when you get an item, actually.
When a new area is unlocked, like you solve a puzzle and
Basically, it's the solving the puzzle one. Yeah, exactly. So it's basically that. Okay, I'm stealing this over here. That should work. Now it should go through. So maybe We'll see how loud it is. Okay, that's better. All right, that's not too loud, I don't think. So, that's pretty important in itself because it's iconic. It's memorable. You hear that and you right away know Zelda. And so that identifies your game. If you have a sound effect that people can point out right away that that's from a game, that's pretty impressive, and that's kind of important. Here's another one. This is on a 10-minute loop, so I'll wait. Anybody?
From Pokemon.
Yes, this is from Pokemon. This is the horrible noise of when you've got low health and you're just trying not to get a miss.
The other sound behind it too.
Yeah, usually it has the music and whatnot, but yeah, this is isolated, just the sound. And this also goes into play of what sound effects are actually kind of obnoxious, because depending on how that works, like the Legend of Zelda equivalent of this is terrible. It's not good. It's very obnoxious, very grating. So, why are sound effects important? You just heard two of them that are pretty iconic in themselves. So first of all, they fill the void. This one is kind of dumb to point out, but I'm going to point it out anyways because too bad. If your game's completely silent, it's going to be really weird. Your player's probably going to think their speakers are broken because games have sound. That's a thing they do. So you need sound effects to have sound. Yeah, good one, Jake. High five. The next thing they do is they give user feedback. Basically, if your character takes a step that the player can hear, they just took a step. If you're navigating the menu, they can hear they're going from spot to spot. If they're swinging a sword, they can hear, I am swinging a sword. They get feedback from it. You can't really give tactile feedback in video games. You have to give them, and yes, you can give them visual feedback, but audio feedback can be really important too in pointing stuff out. Third one, they're enjoyable, just in general. Hopefully. That Pokemon one wasn't really very enjoyable, but there are very enjoyable sound effects that you can really look forward to. I have an example of one. Let's see. Can anybody guess what sound effect I'm going to play? Shut up, Connor. You saw me make this. Does anybody know what sound effect I'm going to do? I'll tell you what game it's from. It's from Dark Souls 3. Anybody have a super...
Is it the rolling?
No, it's not the roll.
When you backstab someone?
Is it
It's close.
the cross ending?
No, it's... Oh, you couldn't even hear it very well.
Yeah, it's like
Turn that up. Does anybody recognize that? No, it really didn't play well over the speakers. That's a shame. It's the parry sound of when you get a parry on somebody, which is when you hold your shield and you knock their weapon out of the way and then you stab them in the chest and most likely one-shot them. It's super, super, super satisfying, and it's super, super frustrating when someone does it to you, but it's a really important sound effect that in itself, just the sound effect is actually enjoyable when you hear it. They did a good job of making it really sound resounding and really powerful, that it's kind of a big thing that happens. And finally, they're just indications about the game. This is just, when you run into a wall, you hear a clunk, you know, something like that. This is when someone sees you, it makes a noise. When you're low on health, it makes a noise. This is just something that the audio is actually just telling you something. Can anybody guess what I'm about to play now?
MGS. The
Ocarina of Time.
Yep.
Yeah, you got it. That was pretty good. Yeah, it's... Oh, is that on loop? Oh, no. Okay, no, it's not on loop. That's scary. I didn't want that to be on loop. Yeah, it's the Metal Gear Solid... Ring. It's not playing it very well. And that's something that is just a huge indicator, because the moment you hear that, you know, oh shit, I just got seen.
Also, you need to retry your mission 5 times.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It means you need to start over is basically what it means. So, yeah, they basically fill all 4 of those points. That is what sound effects, why they're important. So now that we know why they're important, what can you do to make them better? So first of all, this sounds kind of obvious again, but sometimes developers don't really think about it when they put in a sound effect. Your sound effect should match your game. What this means is if your character is swinging a giant hammer, It should not make the same noise as swinging a dagger. It shouldn't make a swoosh when it hits. It shouldn't be a whoosh. That's lame. It should be a kabam. It should be a big kaplow of you're smashing something, and they should be able to feel that. And that's where the term weight comes in. This isn't a real term, not really, but this is my best way of explaining it, is that sounds have a certain weight behind them, that you feel like they have a certain intensity. That's probably the best way I'll explain it. And it kind of, it applies to like the hammer example, that you want your hammer sound effect to be really a really heavy sound, to really slam and give a lot of kaboom and resound to it. Whereas a dagger, you would want a little swish swish because you're not going to be doing as much damage or making as much of an impact as something like a hammer would. So some things that go into a sound's weight are, to start, volume. This is, again, kind of obvious, but at the same time can be ignored. If you have a big sound like the parry in Dark Souls, you should make it loud. Just like literally in volume. Like you should just turn the volume up for that sound so that it's very clear what's going on. If you're playing a game and there's some music playing and a dragon god thing, some huge monster, slams a gigantic hammer into a continent, it probably shouldn't be quiet. Probably shouldn't be quieter than the music. It should probably blow your speakers out because that's a really big thing to happen.
How do you see it smash into a continent, though? Are you in space?
Probably really cool.
There's no sound in space.
You're a little tiny person on the ground.
So it hits you. So you don't hear anything because you're dead.
This is a dumb example. There's no game like this, I don't think, maybe.
I think you probably hear the noise before it hits, and then silence.
I think you probably hear it after it hits, considering sound travels slower than light.
On the TV,
Huh?
this is playing.
Oh, so you hear it through the TV.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you
The earth shakes, and then you hear it.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. In this made-up example video game, sure, that can be how it works. That's fine. You know what I mean, though. And if your character is eating a banana, if your character is low on health and they eat a banana,
you got a cheese stick.
if they eat a cheese stick, it probably shouldn't be ear-splitting. It probably shouldn't be really loud that man, they're eating that banana, I tell you what. There's blah, blah, blah. No, you should probably have it as a more quiet sound because it's just not that important and doesn't need to be literally just loud. So volume plays into it. I didn't know what word to use for this, so if someone has a better word, please tell me. Jarriness, basically how much a sound jars you, like how jarring it is.
It's really descriptive.
It didn't say it was spelled wrong, so like I don't know. And what I mean is how quickly does a sound go from 0 to 100? Is it a wall where it slams into you right away? Does it build up a little bit and fade back out? That kind of playing into it. If you're doing a big slam from something, it should probably be fairly jarring. It should probably be a very strong sounding thud that immediately hits your ears. If you're making a horror game and you've got jump scares, first of all, stop putting in so many jump scares. It's getting lame. Second of all, if you're putting in jump scares, you probably shouldn't have the thing jump out and the sound slowly ramp up. That won't scare anybody. They'll just be really confused at your sound mixing and then probably give you a bad review. What you want is something really jarring. You want something that jumps out super loud, really just scares them, I guess. It's a scary game. Probably should do that.
Play the Five Nights at Freddy's theme. Those are Five Nights at Freddy's.
I'm gonna go ahead and not play a jump scare sound for the club because I don't want to get sued for breaking anybody's ears or something. So I'm gonna avoid doing that, but I could. And the third thing that goes into it is length, like literally like the length of the sound effect, how long it actually lasts. If your dragon god is slamming a hammer into a continent, it should probably last a while. It should probably be a big kaboom with some echoes and some loud smashes and whatnot.
Yeah, it's gonna last your entire life. The rest of
You're right, it's gonna last the rest of your life because you're gonna die. And like sword slashes should only make the noise as long as you're slashing it. If you slash a sword and it goes whoosh, it doesn't really make sense. You stopped. It should stop then. So having sounds that are longer when they're more impactful will just add to the actual weight of the sound. And for something that's not real important, you don't need to have a big echo or a long lead off. You can just cut it short because it's just not that important. Or not that impactful. It could be very important. And finally, I didn't have this written on there, but a little extra note. Don't blow all of your tricks right away. If your character has a hammer and you use maximum volume, biggest sound ever when you swing your hammer, and then the player sees the dumb Dragon God example. What is a Dragon God? I don't know what that is.
You said Tiamat and Bahamut.
Those. Yeah.
Dragons.
Yeah, you know those. I don't know what those are, I'm sorry. Basically, if you then have the player watch that and they make the exact same sound as the hammer because you've already played your max volume, max impact sound, it's not going to be very impactful because in comparison, your character can do that casually with a hammer. So consider basically the biggest sound you'd want and the quietest sound you'd want and scale them based on that so that not all of your big sounds are the maximum volume because then it'll take away from the really big impactful moments and the sounds you want for that.
Could you have multiple sounds for the same thing?
Yeah, oh yeah. You don't need one sound effect for one action. You can randomize it or put multiple into it. Absolutely, yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, you totally can. With certain effects, though, you probably wouldn't want to. If you were doing the parry and you did different sounds for the parry, it just would make it less clear that that's what you're doing.
Sure, yeah.
So like, but if you're doing a hammer swing and you're doing a slam, you can have 3 different slam effects that play. Like that's fine. But if the sound is indicating something, you wouldn't want it to be different. If you had Metal Gear, if you were playing Metal Gear and the sound of that bring was different, if they had like 6 different sounds that were all different, that would just be really confusing because you have no idea if that guy saw you or if that was part of the song, or like maybe you've only heard 5 and then you hear a 6th and you think it's nothing and then you get tackled or shot. You know, that's probably not good. So next point is consider how often your effect plays. If you are playing a game that requires a lot of menu navigation, like a JRPG or something, and the sound of you moving your cursor is that really high-pitched ding that's in a lot of games, a lot of older games it seems like, that's going to become super obnoxious super quickly. That's going to become awful as you're going from spot to spot. It's ding, 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 ding. That sounds terrible. Make it a little boop, or quieter than that, like a boop, boop, boop. Something that won't just make the player want to kill themselves. That's probably not a good idea, making your player suicidal. Probably want to avoid that. I don't know, you make your game. But you don't want something that's just going to be super obnoxious for that. And if you're making a sound effect for an action that you know the player is going to be using a lot throughout the game, you want to put a lot of thought into it. Basically, how often a sound plays, you should be putting more thought into it. Unless that sound is supposed to be really special and impactful, then obviously you'd want to put a lot of thought into it. But if your sound effect is happening a lot, you definitely want to put some thought into it. If you're making the sound effect for swinging a sword and you know the player will be swinging their sword constantly, the last thing you want is for it to be obnoxious, or not even obnoxious, just the last thing you want it to be is unsatisfying. You don't want a sword attack that just doesn't sound very good, because it's just going to take away a lot, because you want it to feel good to swing your sword. I mean, they're going to be doing it the whole game. And the final thing is just don't stack too many sounds. Don't have so many sound effects playing at once that it just sounds super busy, unless you want that part of your game to be super busy and you want it to feel like that. Otherwise, you don't want to do that. It's just, quick tip, not a good idea. Makes things sound way too busy and just not good. You have anything you wanted to add? Guy on the seat?
No.
All right. Does anybody have questions about sound effect stuff? Cool. So, music. Yeah, that was it. All right. So first of all, why is music important? So, music, again, fills the void. It's not just completely quiet. Not going to talk more about that. That's pretty obvious. Second thing is it sets the mood. This is a really, really important one. Because if your music doesn't match the mood, it's just going to sound wrong. The player's going to be playing and they're going to have these conflicted things. If you've got relaxing music playing while you're doing a ridiculously difficult challenge, the player's not going to feel relaxed and maybe make smarter plays because they're relaxed. They're going to get frustrated because the music sounds nice and they're not allowed to feel nice. They have to play this. So I had an example on here of setting the mood. This is one of my favorite atmospheric songs in gaming. No. We'll see if anybody recognizes it. This is, yeah. Can anybody guess what area this would be in?
Yes.
There are aliens. That's yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, because it's high-pitched there.
it's underwater.
Definitely is underwater. Yes. This is an underwater theme of going through big open caverns filled with water. There are some aliens actually. At one point. That's not wrong. But it's basically going through Atlantis in this game as you're going through, all this water and quiet, really calming stuff. And it sets the mood. When you're going through this, you're not thinking, oh crap, I need to go. You take a second and sit back and you say, wow, this area is really pretty. And I know I can just sit back and relax because this music is really chill. And it's pretty lit. It's pretty neat. I just said lit. I'm killing myself. All right. Third thing is it can kind of indicate what's coming in that it can give you info about what you're about to go through or what you are going through. So what I mean is, if you hear a boss theme and there's no boss in the room, start looking around because there's probably going to be a boss in the room or a boss coming into the room very shortly. So that's something to definitely look out for. Like that is an indication of you've heard some really intense music. There's probably something intense coming. So it can be used as that. I had an example here. So who's ready to slay some dragons? No, that doesn't really fit. When you hear this music, you can kind of figure you're probably not going to be playing a super hardcore section of a game.
And you're plushie dragons. And the squeaky toys, and that's the sweet.
Okay, you say plushie. This is from Yoshi's Woolly World, so that was actually pretty. They're basically plushies. So nice job on that. If you didn't know the actual game that was from. But this can be kind of used as an indication for if you hear this kind of music, you know it's not going to be a hardcore game. You're not going to be pulling your hair out. You're probably just going to be falling asleep while playing it and relaxing. So let me stop that. And finally, fourth, it's enjoyable. Is anybody going to argue against that? Music's enjoyable? Cool. All right, that should be pretty clear. So, tips for making music. Your game has a mood, but also consider the player's mood when you're making music. If your player is going through a super hardcore section of your game and they're frustrated, calming music isn't really going to be super helpful necessarily. It's just going to kind of make them angrier. Like, I'm not allowed to be calm here. I need to be frustrated. Why are you trying to calm me down? So also consider changing the mood of your music to more fit how the player should be doing as well, and just the mood of that. If they're going through a more difficult section and they're going through the same environment they were at an earlier time when it was less difficult, make it more intense, make it fit how they should be feeling at that point. Second thing, know when to shut up. This is pretty important in video games. If you have music playing throughout your entire game, and you have a big song at one point, it's probably not going to have as much impact as if you had a bunch of quiet parts in the game, where you had maybe silent parts with no music, or you had very quiet ambience at points. It's just not going to be as much of a contrast throughout the whole of the game. That's not a bad thing. You're allowed to have music throughout your whole game, but it can make things more impactful. So consider it. And then if you have, and on the flip side, if you have a game that has music throughout a lot of it, and you have one silent part, that's going to have a lot of impact because it's really contrasting what the whole game has been up to, what the whole mood, how the mood of the game has been set. So know when to be quiet and when to let the player kind of relax and let them, it's not bad to have silences in games. You don't need music at every part. You can have music at every part. That's not bad. Just consider it at least. Third thing, do not be too distracting or too ambient. And what I mean by that is if you are running around a field, farming slimes, like level 1 monsters in like an RPG, and you're just chilling, you probably shouldn't have super hardcore boss music playing, because that's just going to be distracting for what you're doing. That's just going to be too much, and it's just unnecessary. It's just too distracting. And if you're having a boss fight that's supposed to be really epic, and you have a very Fate theme playing in the background, it's just going to be too ambient, and you're probably not even going to notice it. I know Dark Souls 2 had that issue a lot. I know like nobody in here has played that, it seems like. But it basically had a lot of bosses that had really quiet, sort of, just not very in-your-face music. And a lot of the time when I was playing, I didn't even know there was music. Like I would listen to the theme later and I'd say, oh yeah, I remember hearing this, but I don't associate it with the boss because it wasn't very important. It just didn't really add to anything, and it was just too quiet, and it just was too ambient. It was just too background. Final thing on here is consider what sound effects are going to be playing with your music. Kind of just a general tip. I didn't really have any examples with this one, but like, I'm not doing well at coming up with examples. What's up?
Okay, I have like 5 examples in my head, but I lost all of them as soon as you actually answered me. But I remember there was the Bit Trip games. The music in that, it's a rhythm game, and the music is basically reliant on you playing the game well with the sound effects. So it's like light ambience, and then the sound effects actually fill in the rest of the music.
Oh, okay. So that's like an interesting play with those two features working together. That's interesting.
I am not.
If your game has very beepy music, I don't know how better to word that, like old school beeps, I guess, and then your sound effects are also beeps that sound very similar to the music, that's not going to sound good. So you should probably reconsider how you're setting that up, because if those two are mixing and matching, it'll just make it'll make the music sound bad, and it won't give very good feedback for the player's sound effects.
Yeah, when you're making a game with an ocarina theme in the background, don't have your goal sound effects be also ocarina sound.
That's right. That's what Ryan had. You couldn't tell when you actually beat the game, because it just blended with the music and you couldn't really tell them apart. So when you're making music, consider what sound effects are playing so that they won't have overlaps and it won't sound bad, basically. So now we're going to play a game called Guess That Jam, which is kind of like what we did before with that banjo theme, where I just want to play some stuff and I want to see if we can put together what situation this music would be used in, or probably would be used in a game. First things first, does anybody have their examples of this? I don't want to just sit there and play the music that I came up with. So does anybody have good examples of songs that fit a certain theme that we can work with, that we can try and guess what's in it? Nothing?
What theme?
What?
What themes?
Literally anything. Like anything atmospheric. Like that's...
Do we say it, or do we just like go up and...
Yeah, just come up and then we can search.
If it's not a spoiler in its name, then you can come up and write it, but
Like if I say with the game is,
I guess
Yeah, just come up and then we can YouTube.
yeah,
I can't really like
look it up.
exactly bring it to a.
Actually, both came up when I was like, music.
That's a good one. I've heard that. So where would you see this being played? What mood is this setting?
Dark City.
New Donk City. It's actually not what this is.
Really?
Yeah, it's not from Mario Odyssey actually. No.
Is it a Tails game?
Regardless of what game this is in, what are you thinking?
It's not from Yeah.
Because this game, this theme to me, to start things off, sounds very like upbeat and very open, kind of like you're being like free. It kind of embodies like freedom, like you're just running around, having a good time. What? Yeah, kind of like that feeling, exactly. Of your shackles have been taken off and you're kind of open to do what you want. Yeah, absolutely.
Is it 3D World or Galaxy? What is it?
yeah, it's Galaxy.
It's Galaxy. Yep, Super Mario Galaxy.
You can tell because the orchestra.
Yeah.
Gotta love that.
Oh, I went full screen. Oh, wait, there's a mouse right here. What am I doing?
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, enter yours.
I'm gonna use one of these ones.
Should probably look up OST or something so it actually pops up with soundtrack.
Yeah.
I mean, we could watch a Let's Play, but it's probably not the best idea right now.
Really. All right. Let's try. Hold on. I remember this. Chicken. Oh yeah, let's just do this one.
Chicken.
Sounds like a good one.
I'm that guy in the shirt.
Oh wait, this isn't. No, whatever.
You want to pick a different one?
I don't remember what it's called. I was just trying to go for the first one.
So when would this be played? I literally don't know.
I'm trying. I thought this was one of the level ones.
Going through like a dungeon or something like that.
I feel like I'm going
Yeah.
through like a cave or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely feels kind of like empty, almost like echoing. Kind of sounds like it's going back and forth.
It sounds like something to do with radios almost.
You've gone from a cave to a spaceship, I guess. I don't know.
I mean, that's
Playing Metroid?
like with all the.
This is Metroid.
Yeah, no.
No, it's not. It's not.
It's from the Bit Trip soundtrack. It's a mix of all the Bit Trip games. That explains it. I thought it was a Bit Trip other thing. This is one of the first levels in the series, and these games always go from like having really like ambient, like at the start of the level it's really easy. At the start of the level it's always really easy, and so it's always really ambient, and then it like picks up as you progress through the level and do better.
Yeah, I could definitely hear that it started out really ambient and then moved up.
Yeah.
With tossers in there. Just using YouTube, archaic methods. Throw out ideas.
Exactly what game it's from, but it feels like you're on some grand quest or something.
Yeah, definitely feels heroic. Absolutely.
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah. He said Pirates of the Caribbean for the people that couldn't hear because the music's kind of loud. What?
Battle scene.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like a heroic sort of to battle theme. And what is this from?
It's a great megalith from Sonic and the Black Knight, and the context is you're basically storming an enemy encampment.
Yeah. Awesome. That's basically was kind of what we came up with from that. Absolutely.
I got one.
That's a good one.
Okay. Toss it in.
Is this RimWorld?
Yeah, yeah. You can tell.
That was quick.
First note, yeah.
That was quick. That was literally one note. That's what I call iconic right there.
Yeah.
I've had to restart my game too many times for that.
May I do another iconic one?
Sure, after we, go through this, or let her go first.
Yeah.
So.
Other songs.
Huh?
I feel like this is the one song that plays.
I feel like it always has that same start.
Yeah. Whenever you open up the game, it starts with this.
Okay, regardless of what game it is, what does this feel like?
Yeah.
Ambient.
Yep.
It's just kind of in the background and flowing.
It's also got a very Western.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like an old spaghetti western or something.
Yeah.
I
guess that's bad.
about to start a brawl.
Or boom rapids are gonna invade your colony.
Go ahead.
What was that from? Rimworld. So you're stuck. You crash land on a planet and start from scratch. I mean, there is kind of a cowboy aspect to it. That when you fend off raiders and their tribes around, but very sci-fi.
So what does it sound like, first of all?
I feel like I should know this.
Definitely has like a water theme.
Dive.
Kind of sounds like some Jingle Bells, like some Christmas maybe.
Maybe on the Sapphire.
Yep.
Yes.
This is. You're correct.
Underwater? Because I'm used
Yep.
to it from the
So yeah, this is when you use dive. Yep. It's basically kind of an upbeat water theme, water jam. And I'm gonna make you the last one because I want to throw in some of mine as well because I had some very directed ones. Oh, good soundtrack. Probably find if you're looking for a track name, it's probably in the description.
Not necessarily a track name, I just looked it up real quick.
Very intense. It's like a racing game.
Yeah.
Definitely very intense, yeah.
Very good atmosphere.
Is it platforming? Is that what it is?
Well, it's not, but it kind of sounds like really intense platforming.
Like, you got the world falling out from behind you.
What is it?
Marvel vs. Capcom?
Nope.
Dance Revolution.
This is from Crypt of the Necrodancer,
Oh, yeah.
which is basically where you dance your way through a dungeon. It's like a beat. It's a
It's a dance and slash.
it's a dance and slash. Exactly. It's pretty great. I've played that game. It's a lot of fun. But it's definitely intense, as the idea is you're doing a roguelike going through a dungeon, but you have to do everything to the beat. So you're slashing monsters to the beat and moving to the beat. It's pretty great.
And you hope your audio doesn't have any delay to it.
I don't know if this is gonna be loud. Nope.
that sounded very innocent for a second, and then it did not.
Always a drop of this type of sounds.
Check it out a little bit.
I've seen a little bit about it. Definitely haven't played it. But
Definitely getting more and more intense as it goes on.
Kind of mix between electric and like weird percussion instruments.
Mm-hmm.
Like someone ran their electric car into a trash heap.
yeah, with a little bit more grace than running your car into a trash heap. You're right. So what is this? What is this from?
It's from Fury. It's like basically just a boss rush game where every level is just a boss. And this is probably the best song out of iOS game. And it's the first boss, which I feel like it was kind of a waste.
Yes, it definitely starts out kind of mellow and then builds up into this intense thing. Nice.
But it did introduce the game well, though.
Oh yeah, I was really hyped after the first boss battle, and then the next one like had like the quietest song for the boss. But
Okay, so these two are from the same game. These next two, and I want you to tell what they are. They are both boss themes. All right. So both of them. So this is the first one.
I know. It was.
Yeah, this is 8-Bit Whiz, sure. First of all, does anybody know what it's from? Shut up, Connor. You're not even allowed to participate in these.
Is it Mario?
This is not Mario. It is Dark Souls. It's definitely Dark Souls. But the reason I wanted to do this one is because this is what a lot of the boss fights sound like. Is this sort of intense, ridiculous charge, go get them, as you're fighting these behemoth monsters that are trying to rain down on you. This is the second one that I have. Same game. Still a boss. What does this feel like?
Is it a mental boss? Mental-based boss? Queen, right?
What?
Queen, the last boss, the first one?
No.
Who's that Queen? Oh, it is Queen actually. It is Queen, but
Oh, Gwyn. I'm sorry, I didn't hear that correctly. Yes. This is Gwyn. This is the last boss of the game. Yeah. This is the final boss of the game. The idea. What?
what is Queen? It was like Genesis.
He's like an old dude who's kind of left over, and he's kind of just trying to protect the last thing he has. It's kind of a sad fight. It's kind of, you're not fighting this behemoth that's trying to kill everything. You're fighting an old man that's defending the last thing he has, and it's a very different feeling because every other boss fight is very intense, has a lot of gravitas, and suddenly you get a boss fight that's just very mellow and very kind of sad sounding.
Why'd you want to kill him?
Because you're an asshole. It's way too complicated to explain.
is the boss fight like still hard?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's basically just parry like 5 times because he's the only boss you can parry in that game. But it's still fucking hard, that's for sure. So here's another one. This one is not from Dark Souls. Oh boy. But this one's hardly even considered music. This is not Alien Isolation.
I mean, yeah.
This is in a game with plenty of upbeat music in other areas. So, I turned it down. In this area, what would this area give you just based on the music? It's still really quiet. Is it still playing?
You're in a dangerous location.
Basically, yeah.
I feel like something's about to jump out at me, but nothing's there right now.
That's actually pretty much perfect.
Deadly Premonition.
This is from Hollow Knight. This is from, and basically this area in Hollow Knight is in the deepest part of the game, and there's a ton of really gross, creepy, crawly bugs all over the place, and centipedes and nasty stuff just out of reach. And stuff does jump out at you. It's the only area where enemies will spawn under the ground next to you and just jump out and start attacking you. And so it's very unsettling and it's very alone sounding. But it's not so much quiet as empty. It definitely feels like there are things there. It's just things you don't want. So it's very different from if they had done no music and no sound effects, for sure. So what does this feel like? Jesus. Sorry. It's louder than I was expecting. Any?
Feels like you're running.
Feels like a what?
You're running.
Yep, it definitely feels like you're moving. That's, yes. First of all, does anybody know what this is from? This game came out kind of recently.
No idea what it is though.
Is it space at all?
No, it is not in space. It is Celeste. Yes, this is from Celeste, and you basically are climbing a mountain, and this is as you're reaching the peak. And there's a lot of hard stuff in your way for sure, but you're kind of getting this I'm almost there sense, and it's sort of pushing you forwards. Definitely.
The piano sounds like an iPhone ringing in an orchestra.
I'm very confused right now.
I'm very confused with this music as well.
All right, and then this was the last one I had.
The only thing I can think of is
Yeah, it is.
theater or whatnot.
Sounds familiar.
He said it's from Banjo, so spoiler, it's from Banjo. This is before I reveal what this is, I want to hear what you think the area would seem like, because it's an area theme.
Very ridiculous.
Okay. Not the cheeriest place. That's a good one.
Nothing weirdly colored,
What?
like polka dots every once in a while or something.
No, it's not necessarily polka dots, but that's a good guess. Anything else? No? Not a haunted house, although I can see where you're coming from, certainly. This level is a factory, and it's basically filled with, it's got like toxic sludge everything and everywhere, and everything's almost slowly trudging along. There's factory workers in dirty clothing kind of meandering around, and it's just a very slow, gross song. And it kind of sounds like, especially if you listen at the beginning, it kind of sounds like you're trudging through this. It sounds like you're trying to get through a bunch of sludge that's just slowing you down. Can you guys hear that? Does it make sense? I'm not just speaking out my ass. Cool. Not this time, at least. So yeah, there's a lot of things that go into, certainly a lot of things that go into sound design, into making good sound effects, into making good music. But it's a lot of remembering why you want to do it and what is actually going into the part you're putting. You might hear a song that sounds great, but if you don't have the gameplay in front of you, if you don't have it laid out and you have an idea of it, you might go with the wrong option. And so you should take into account everything you can and work off of it. Yeah, those were the 5 that I had. I don't know why I organized them like that. I think it was ambitious and figured I'd have a lot more, but I just didn't, so oops. So that's all I had for today. Did anybody have any questions about anything I talked about? Why'd you sit back down?
Because I didn't want to see the YouTube videos when people were playing them.
Okay, that's fair.
Or else I knew what they were.
I get it. You betrayed me. It's fine. All right. So, as always, guys, go forth, make games, be awesome. Thanks a lot.